For example, finding shared values, understanding others, having conversation, and finding attraction. Okay, so the next thing that we'll look at is dating intentions of men and women, single women and single men, okay, to see if there is any divergence, gender specific systematic differences in what men and women expect from dating. So as you can see, here we have relationship preference, like monogamous relationship, non-monogamous, and casual sex. See that women, almost 70% of single, again, because this sample is based on singles only, want serious relationship from dating. And if you look at here, this number is so much smaller, right? 37% of heterosexual men want long-term relationship.
Can you say what is
Right. Okay. So if you remember at the start, I said because of differences in values, as well as dating intentions between men and women, right? That gives rise to the gender-based political polarization, and this is the dating intention. We basically asked individuals, what are they expecting from dating? What are their intentions when they date, right? So majority of women want a long-term relationship, while 37% of heterosexual men want long-term relationship, and they're looking for something else, for more short-term. So this also creates uncertainty, but also mismatches, right, between what men and women want from dating. Okay, so the next question is whether dating aggravates gender gaps. What we do, we fielded a priming experiment. So this is not a field experiment. We didn't send people to go on dates. That would be fantastic. That's going to be like a second project that we'll have. We'll send people to go on dates, and then we'll see kind of a field experiment to see what happens. Here we indirectly test it by reminding them about challenges for individuals when dating. So we cued singles with dating questions, and we thought, okay, so if we cue them, remind them about dating challenges, would that influence their political beliefs and attitudes? It's called priming experiment or cueing experiment. So how did we do that? We just randomized the order of question blocks. So one question block was about a set of questions about their political beliefs, and other was purely about dating experiences and challenges, right? So half of the individuals were randomly assigned to respond questions about dating first, right? And then questions about political attitudes, and the rest responded first, the questions about political attitudes and then dating. Right? So here we basically study the effect of cueing individuals about dating challenges on their political beliefs and attitudes. Okay, so dependent variables, we had gender-specific policy support, this is the same, feminist identity and voting intentions. So if we look at the main effects in terms of gender-specific policy support, we see that there is no effect of dating, right? But if we look at the subgroup analysis, even though there's still no effect of dating prime, what do we see here is that women in our sample, so single women, support progressive policies for men and for women, right? While heterosexual men, their support, even though it's statistically insignificant, their support for women-specific gender policies decreases, right? And it's low. Okay, and then this is probably one of the biggest findings of our study. Here we looked into one of the hunches that we had because of exposure to a feminist date, on average, heterosexual men's feminist identity would suffer, right? They would become less feminist because of the emotional tools of having spoken to feminist women, etc., right? So what do we see here? That it has a statistically and substantively significant effect on heterosexual men's feminist identity. So they report feeling less feminist after having responded to questions about dating. Okay, the next question we looked at, which is this part is really interesting for me, is how men and women navigate these divides on ideologies, values, etc. during dates. Do people talk about politics, and how do they talk about politics on dates? So there's some descriptive results. So instead of asking directly whether you would be willing or you would feel comfortable talking about politics on a first date or on a third date, we asked them whether they would feel comfortable talking about the following issues on a first date. And then we repeated the same question for third date. So these 4 issues were among a list of other, I think there were 8 or 9 other things, for example, hobbies, a formal relationship, sex, etc. Right? So you can see that there are also gender differences on the topic that people feel comfortable talking about. Women feel symmetrically more comfortable talking about climate change and gender and feminism. This effect is even larger for gender and feminism, and immigration and Brexit is more a topic that single men would like to talk. Okay, and here's also a bit of a descriptive. You can see that it's a sizable part of individuals don't like talking about these issues on dates. And this is to show you that politics is not the most feared topic. So people actually do, it's in between past relationship and sexual intimacy and movies, music, nature, and sports, right? And these dynamic changes on the third date. This is for third date, this is first date. Okay, and another hypothesis we had that because the feminist identity is so stark and important for feminists, for those who self-identify as feminists, then they would be more, they would feel more comfortable, or it would be more important for them to talk about politics on dates. And this is the case. So those who self-identify with feminism, they also report in the first date, but also third date to talk about willingness and comfort level to talk about politics. Here we pull all these 4 political issues. Okay, and the next one is we'll look at whether modern gender equality attitudes is the root of diverging mating choices, and we embed a scenario experiment. Where we describe a hypothetical romantic date and ask the respondents to imagine it as vividly as possible. And we have 3 experimental conditions where we expose them to a sexist date without actually mentioning that your date is sexist. Now you will see the vignette. A feminist date and a control where the date is described, however, the date doesn't talk about gender equality. Okay, so first they're exposed to this information, then imagine you're in a date with someone very attractive. So he wanted to control for the fact that people are feeling attracted to the date, so they like the date to start. And then those who were randomly assigned to a feminist date read these. So your date casually brings up their views on women's rights. They reveal that women nowadays remain disadvantaged in the job market, etc. And the similar scenarios presented to those who were randomly assigned to sexist date, saying that women nowadays are seeking preferential treatment in the job market. We wanted to study the effect of this imagined date on people's dating intentions. So we have 2 variables, whether the individual is attracted to date and whether the individual would go to another date, this person. And it is by Soji group. So we have heterosexual men, heterosexual women, and gay, bi, and lesbian bi. So you see that when we look at the effect of our treatment among heterosexual women, see that they are systematically, on average, are deterred by sexist date, right? Feminist date doesn't have an effect. Would have expected it would have a positive effect, but it doesn't. So they're deterred by sexist date. They're also less willing to go on a date, on a second date with them. But if we look, this is very sad for me. But if we look at the results among heterosexual men, what we see is that irrespective of whether the date was feminist or sexist, talking about gender equality puts men off. Yeah, heterosexual men. Yeah, because these results are statistically significant. Even though effect of sexist date is bigger than feminist state, but still there's statistical significant deterring effect. Yeah.
Just quick question out of curiosity. So the bottom line of lesbian and bisexual women, who were they having dates with?
So we matched. So they just see. So they see the scenario, the same scenario. So there's no specific mention of whether it's man, woman, etc. Just your date to control for that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah. And then you can say, because I got this question, or maybe that's ideology, ideology matters, of course. Maybe this negative effect, deterring effect is driven by conservative men, which could be a possibility. But it comes the starkest, saddest truth when we look at these results by political ideology. Okay. So what we see that modern sexist state has the greatest negative effect on dating intentions of heterosexual women, right? But it also has a deterring effect among conservative heterosexual women, right? On average, irrespective of the ideology, heterosexual women don't want to go on a date, or they don't feel attracted to a sexist person, sexist date. If we look at the results among progressive men, yes, they also don't like a sexist date, but they equally don't like this. We're talking about progressive, right? This was a big surprise for me. So they also equally don't like a date which talks about gender equality, and this is statistically significant. And these differences doesn't differ for conservative men. Right. So if you look at these, this is not dissimilar, right? Ideology doesn't play a role here. And these are emotional tools of having gone on a date with a sexist person. You see that women feel depleted, frustrated, anxious, and angry, having been on a date with a sexist person. But men are equally sadder when they talks about politics, when in this case gender equality. I presented these in one environment, and one guy, associate professor, he said, I wouldn't also date a political woman. He's like, okay, just from the audience. Yeah, he told me that, basically. Okay. Right. So we are trying to contribute to a body of research that links politics to romantic relationship formation, and Stuart is here. He has just this year published a study on dating and politics. And we're also trying to contribute to sociological studies on the persistence of traditional dating scripts. I didn't show you because I thought I'm not going to have time. This was one of the other paradoxical findings of our book. So even though we find that heterosexual women are systematically more progressive in their values, policy support, behavior, etc., they are so traditional in the way they think about dating scripts and norms. So I can show you a graph if you're interested, which we find that an overwhelming majority of heterosexual women want men to take leadership in organizing dates and paying for dates. And they want themselves to provide emotional warmth. I don't know what it means, but still, emotional warmth during the date. So this also creates uncertainty in contemporary dating, right? So women are becoming more progressive in their views. However, we're still not sure how progressive we have become in the way we see dating norms and scripts. So we don't know as men and women what to expect. This is based on anecdotal evidence. I haven't spoken to friends, male friends who are dating. They also suffer from uncertainty. Like, what should I do? Should I pay? Should I not pay? Just talk, right? Just talk to each other to find out what the other person thinks. And I'm also we're going to write a paper about it. I'm also trying to contribute to deliberative democracy and political talk on romantic dates, and also study a bit, is it worth talking about politics on the first date? Because deliberative democracy say that political talk is good. It's good for your opinion formation, but it has big relational and emotional tools. So when is it good? When is it not good to talk about politics in different social contexts? Yes. Have you seen Love is Blind? Has anyone seen Love is Blind? Okay, it's a Netflix show. It's like I don't watch these kind of shows, but I did when I was writing my book because it's a relaxing way of spending your time. So Love is Blind is a network. Is a Netflix show, reality show, where singles are invited to talk to each other in pods. Basically, they are rooms with a wall between. They don't see each other, but they spend long hours talking to each other. The whole idea is that they should be attracted to each other's personality first. And then the funny thing is that they have to ask for the other person's hand before actually seeing them. Okay, so they get engaged and then they see each other afterwards and they get married. So the last bit of Love is Blind you should watch. Spain doesn't have it. I mean, there's in so many countries, even Middle East, but I don't think there is a Spanish version. I haven't seen it. It's Latin American, like Argentinian and Brazilian. This is from US one. Why I'm showing you this? Because when I was watching this last season, okay, so how it works in the end, very end, after having spent time in the real world with each other for 1 month, I think, they have to get married, right? They have to go to the altar. But in most of the cases, they don't know whether the girl or the boy is going to say yes or not. Okay, the first time in this program's history, they have done 8 seasons, 2 women. So these women and this one, Virginia, and I don't remember, Sarah, they cited irreconcilable political differences at the altar for rejecting their husbands-to-be. And it seems, I presented LSE the other day, there was this American woman, and she said that it's a big thing in the US at the moment, still talking about it, because it was such a big thing for a reality show. That the politics, women cited political differences as the main reasons of not wanting to marry this guy. In this case, it was an LGBTQ plus, right? In this case, an abortion, because they had a different views on politics. Yeah, I wanted to bring it to your attention because I thought it was really interesting, and we start the book with this reference.
And only women rejected. Not men.
Men can also reject. In this case, it was women who rejected. Yeah.
I mean, the raising political reasons. Only women were raising political reasons.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
In
But
the whole
men.
history of the
Interesting.
Yeah. That's it. Thank you so much.
Sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna collect some questions.
Yeah,
and then,
I'll take notes.